So welcome to this roundtable on the multi-cloud challenge. I would say that first of all, to introduce this topic, multi-cloud challenge is and will be at the heart of the major concern for decision maker, technology player, IT professional, and all security stakeholders. So you are all welcome to this session, and for sure, I hope you will learn a lot from our panelists. Today, so I'm pleased to introduce you to our panelists who will be sharing their experience and provide valuable insight to overcome the main challenges posed by the multi-cloud. So first, Tobias Hallward, who is president at Euroclub Europe, which is a European non-profit and vendor-neutral organization delivering know-how, legal orientation, quality guidance, and best practice policies for global usage. Bertrand, at the bottom of this table, Bertrand Means, which is deputy CIO at IRSEM, IRSEM being a social protection group for family and home employment sector. We also have Louis Vieille-Cézet, which is the second one. He is pre-sales manager for cyber resilience at Microfocus, one of the world's largest enterprise software provider. And finally, we also have Amdembi Mirawi, who is Cloud Security Center of Competency leader at Capgemini, a global leader in consulting, digital transformation, technology, and engineering services. And finally, myself, Alexandre Fernandez, I'm Associate Director in the Security and Risk Practices at Gartner Consulting. I will be the moderator for this roundtable and will be exchanging with our panelists. So, as an introduction, I would say that today multi-cloud is a predominant pattern for all IT infrastructure architecture in today's world and is also a long-term trend. In 2019, a Gartner research survey on cloud adoption revealed that more than 80% of respondents using public cloud were using more than one cloud service provider. So I'll let you imagine what is the percentage today. For sure, there are several reasons for the use of multi-cloud, among which we may think about the diversity of choice, low barrier to entry, move away from single vendor dependency, improve organizational resilience, but that's not exactly what brings us today together. What brings us today together is that multi-cloud strategy, also full of positive aspects, also create complexity and brings also real security blind spots. This later will be our focus for the first part of our discussion, and the panelists will help you to demystify the underlying security issues and challenges. In the second part, the panelists will strive to share with you the best practices they observe, experience, or apply to overcome this challenge. We will also have a constructive discussion to share point of view on this hot topic and thus try to refine or illustrate the panelists' suggestions to make them as concrete as possible for you. Finally, we will conclude this roundtable with a question-answer session. This will be an opportunity for all of you to contribute and enrich the debate with additional perspective. Just before we start, I would like to specify that we do not pretend or aim to cover exhaustively this topic, but each panelist will share with you a selection of carefully chosen key messages they have considered before this session. When considering the multi-cloud strategy, challenges may be many and can spread over a number of different areas. To name a few, container and application security, identity and access management, encryption, key management, network segmentation, and so on. The panel will guide you through some of them, which are cloud model and architecture, shared security responsibilities, multi-cloud sourcing, network perimeter concept, security assurance over cloud security provider. So to start, Bertrand, having experienced the shift from full on-premise to multi-cloud architecture, from both the CIO and the CISO position, can you maybe explain us what were the main challenges you faced?
Thank you, Alexandre. Before starting, I was a former CISO, so I have 2 points of view. The CISO one with security and the CIO one with budget-oriented and usage. From my experience of CISO, I think in a multi-cloud architecture, the classical security models become outdated. There is a few tips will work, but I have 2 examples. In a SaaS model, there is no network security. You pay for an usage of a digital product, not an infrastructure with security model. The provider, the cloud provider, offer you security by contract, but you can't decide the security you want. And I have a second example. In on-premise architecture, you may pen test a new software in your data center, but could you ask for a security audit to your cloud provider in a SaaS model or a PaaS model? You can ask, but I don't think the answer will fit to you. The point of view of CIO is a chain of responsibilities. Yes, there is a slide. The change of responsibilities where a full on-premise architecture obligates the CIO to have the whole responsibility from data center hardware to application and then data. Using cloud offers change the paradigm of CIO responsibilities. It's the essential difference. It becomes a shared responsibility according to the chosen cloud models. Here the slide comes from Microsoft, but you can have other illustration for the shared responsibilities. For example, on-premise you have, as I said, the whole responsibilities. On a SaaS model, you have only responsibilities on data and share responsibilities on the IAM, identity and access providing. So you provide identity data from your user, but the infrastructure of, for example, Azure AD from Microsoft, it's a shared responsibilities between Microsoft and you. And some rules change. For example, in case of incident with O365, the contract gives the right for compensation for unavailability, but it's up to the customer to claim compensation. Before, when you have a problem with your provider, the provider apologizes and provides the compensation. With Microsoft, Microsoft is just an example. I have nothing with Microsoft. It's not automatic. It's not automatic. It's up to you to claim the compensation.
Thank you, Bertrand, for pointing out the importance to understand cloud model, the related impact on shared responsibilities with the cloud security provider, as well as the fact that traditional security model or control are now becoming obsolete in certain cloud model. Now, to better understand organization situation, let's have a look at what is happening on the market. Tobias, as part of your activity, you have had access to a large number of situations in Europe. Maybe can you present us what is the current status of multi-cloud sourcing in large organizations, and what are the problems all such organizations are confronted with?
Thank you very much, Alexandre. Yes, apart from Eurocloud Europe, I'm also consulting large government and industry organizations in their cloud transformation, and that's the background of the information I would like to give you. So let's look first at the provider status. We are seeing an ever-increasing number of cloud providers appearing on the market with more and more attractive cloud services. And we see, of course, 3 large cloud providers, the oligopolists of this world, dominating the market, Microsoft, Google, and Amazon, and they are urging companies to use more and more of their cloud services. Plus, they are increasingly providing attractive microservices around their basic core products that are very attractive for customers, but they are also, we can see a considerable vendor login that is coming from that side. It is also important to understand that there is a very strong dynamic on the provider side, which means they constantly change and evolve their cloud services. They reduce elements, they add new features and elements, and that can have a huge impact on the use case of the customers. So they need to constantly update their security assessment. So conclusion from the provider side, there are more and more offerings and the dependencies on them is growing. Now let's look at the customer side. It is beyond any doubt that there are more and more use cases in companies that demonstrate that the usage of cloud services is massively supporting the digital transformation. Business departments are generating countless new ideas and use cases how to use cloud services. Shift to teleworking, better tools for sales, better tools for operational planning, cloud tools for artificial intelligence tools, complex decision-making tools, managing customer experience. And in all of these areas, cloud services are offering more and more attractive value proposition. And we also need to understand there is also a very strong dynamic on the customer side. So the users, the business departments are changing the way they use specific services from time to time. And again, this means the assessment, the risk assessment has frequently to be updated. So conclusion, many businesses will soon no longer be using just 10 or 20 cloud services. I predict that most companies will use 50, 100 different cloud services and micro-cloud services. So where do we stand in terms of the development and adoption of multi-cloud according to international research? We can see 2 things. First of all, the normal cloud is here already. There is no doubt it's used. But the multi-cloud, so companies that are in a hybrid IT with multi-cloud sourcing, they are at the peak of inflated expectations. So there will be a lot of pain, a lot of tears in the next month and years. And we need to know that. We need to understand that if companies go into a multi-cloud environment, they are not prepared, and managing a multi-cloud hybrid IT environment is extremely complex. A lot of know-how is needed, and they are not prepared.
Thank you, Tobias, for the market outlook. I would say that the 2 main key takeaways are that the use of new cloud services will increase much more quickly than the business currently assume, and also that the complexity of the multi-cloud governance and management within hybrid IT environment is still being massively underestimated by all organizations around the world. Let's see now more in detail which aspects are the most problematic one. Maybe Luis, can you explain to us why and how the share or delegated security responsibility represents multiple security challenges to organizations adopting a multi-cloud strategy?
Yeah, thanks, Alexandre. I think the first thing, and it was highlighted already by Bertrand in the slide that he showed, is that there's a vast heterogeneity big differences in the level of security services and security guarantees that you get from this army of providers, and sometimes you don't necessarily get the flexibility that you'd hope for from the various vendors. And so this is something that Bertrand rightly mentioned. And the thing is, depending on what kind of service you get, you will need to look at, well, you will have different governance rules that will apply, whether they be on the data side, the functional side, the technical operations side, and so on and so forth. And at the end of the day, if you start looking at use cases at a use case level, and this was a discussion we were having just before the meeting, this session today with Tobias, if you look at a use case level, right, things can start getting very, very complex with some key applications that you have running from cloud services. One of the ones that we see at CyberRes when we work on cloud security projects are typically when you have an ITSM cloud vendor or where you have a CRM cloud vendor. I can let you guess who the vendors are. Is typically you send a lot of sensitive customer data there. You send a lot of sensitive operational data into these supplier clouds, and you can say, okay, what are the security provisions around my data there? Who can access? Everything is documented. Is it documented to a sufficient level that you want? Is the first question. If that is insufficient, then what mitigating measures and what measures of control do you put in place? And if there's one thing that I hope you can take away from what I'm going to say today is always question the control. What level of control do you want over what is happening? And as we saw in the shared security model, that shared responsibility model showed by Bertrand earlier, is that you will have some services where functionally you have a shared responsibility, and other services where some of the responsibility lies with your service provider. Right? Even since you own the business, fundamentally, you guys represent the business in the business relationship, right? At the end of the day, even the vendor, right? How do you control what the vendor is actually supposed to be providing to you? And even if you're in a business relationship with them, from a security standpoint, based on what you're allowed to audit, what you see from their own security provisions, if they don't match up to your expectation, what mitigating measures do you put in? Now, with the CRM and service management vendor that we often see on the market, well, sometimes we get to see customers that aren't really satisfied and who want more. And the typical answer is, okay, encrypt the data. Great, we've encrypted the data. The system still works well, that's fine. Okay, who's managing the keys? How does the key management system work? Who's operating it? You have to go through all the way down through the cascade of responsibilities. So when you look at your cloud shared responsibility model, it shouldn't really be just a few boxes of who's responsible for what elements of control do I have over the various responsibilities that I want. And that's absolutely key.
Thank you, Luis, for having illustrated two key aspects organizations have to consider. First one being that there is definitely a need to change security model from network security towards security of identity, application, and data. And second one would be that a precise understanding of security control provided by cloud provider is key to start this change. At this stage, we have talked about security responsibilities issue, governance issue, technical issue. However, as in a multi-cloud environment, solution and control can differ from one cloud provider to another. These challenges may not be addressed in a simple and unique manner by the same teams nor the same expert within organization. Abdambi, as a cloud security consultant, can you tell us what is the utmost multi-cloud security challenge your clients face and why?
Thank you. I will try during my intervention to to explain 2 points. First point is I will try to give you a synthesis of what are the main cloud security challenges that was explained by my colleagues today, the other panelists. And in the second part, I will try to put a focus on a specific challenge. First of all, what are the multi-cloud security challenges? When we look at more closer, we see that multi-cloud security challenges are cloud security challenges, but they are multiplied or accentuated. If we try to extract a mathematical formula, we see that the multi-cloud challenges equal the cloud security challenges multiplied by the number of CSP that you are using. If we look at now what are the main cloud security challenges, we have first identity and access management, data protection that was mentioned before. We have visibility and legal and regulatory compliance. But there is a main challenge that has not been mentioned before, but it was implied. This is the competencies, the skills. Today, to address the cloud security challenges, if you don't have a team that have the sufficient skills, is very hard to address them. And I said that the skills is implied in all main challenges that was mentioned. All security challenges like EAM or visibility or something like that, if you don't have the skills and understand how the cloud service provider provide these services, cannot address them with the best manner. Second part, I will try to give you a quick resume that or an understanding about challenges. Challenges are not only technical. They are technical and both organizational.
Thank you, Abdemi. So in conclusion, you demonstrated by multi-cloud security challenges are both organizational and technical, and that competency aspect is somehow a cornerstone of most of these challenges. We have now covered the first part of this roundtable. Many bad news have tarnished the bright prospect offered by the cloud, and I would like to offer the possibility to panelists to present solutions to overcome the different challenges we have identified. So in this second part, we will focus on sharing with you all best practices, blind spot to avoid, model or framework to use, and hands-on feedbacks, so that the multi-cloud strategy will resonate as a long journey rather than as a dead-end destination for you. We will follow a top-down approach, starting with the methodology and framework layer up to the technical layer. So to start, Tobias, could you elaborate on methodology and framework that are useful to address the multi-cloud challenges previously discussed?
Yes, of course, Alexandre. So, very important that companies understand in the very beginning what we have said before. There are more and more interesting cloud services, and it's possible that we get dependent on them. Secondly, businesses are more and more interested in using cloud services, which will increase the service portfolio massively. And third, that cloud services themselves, as well as their usage, is constantly changing. The providers are changing things, and the users are changing the way they are using these cloud services. So it is becoming more and more complex to manage it. The governance becomes more and more complex, and most companies, I would say 99% of the companies that are going into a hybrid multi-cloud environment face two situations: either a massive security risk or a cost explosion. And business departments or IT departments need to handle these multi-cloud environments, and basically it's the same task that they were doing before, like provisioning, cost management, disaster recovery, monitoring, service desk, change management. But because of the dynamic of the customer and the provider side, these tasks are getting more and more complicated, and sometimes they are not doing it themselves. Sometimes they are using cloud brokers to do parts of the job, or the cloud provider is doing part of the jobs. And I see most companies completely unprepared for that. They have too little resources and too little know-how. And I can see that in all the companies I'm consulting. I see it in insurance companies, in banks, in government organizations, in the city of Vienna. They all have the same situation. Too little know-how, and they only look at things on a short-term perspective. They want to change a problem right now, but they don't see the big picture. Plus the lack of financial and personal resources. So in order to successfully tackle the huge challenge of multi-cloud environment and to develop a short, mid and long-term roadmap that is also accepted by the management so that you get these additional financial resources, I see three potential things that you should do. First of all, you should establish a cloud management library, which is a kind of library that collects all cloud management activities that might be relevant. I would say there are between 50 and 200 potential cloud management activities that you should consider, like disaster recovery for a specific cloud service. Secondly, you must assign each use case to a cloud service to a set of this library. This is called the shared responsibility matrix. And this shared responsibility matrix is different from use case to use case. Sometimes only 20 management activities are important, sometimes 80. And because these companies have too little resources, it is very important from a strategic point of view to decide which one do we tackle immediately, because they are the fastest ones, because they reduce our risk the most, because we have the biggest learning, because, I don't know, they are the cheapest, whatever. This is a strategic decision and not a short-term decision that is done just by coincidence. So, and the third step is that exactly that decision of which are the resources, the management skills that we build up ourselves. What is this set? What would he like to outsource to a broker because he can just do it better than we do it? And which are the management activities that we would like the cloud provider to do, but from a strategic point of view, so that you don't lose your strategic know-how of managing these multi-cloud environments. This would be my three-step approach to tackle multi-cloud environment challenges. Thank you.
Thank you, Tobias, for sharing this three-step methodology. I would now like to emphasize maybe on one of the latest points you do mention regarding the cloud security competencies. So I would say that given that security skills are already lacking on the market today, this should be even more challenging for cloud security skill. Abdembi, you mentioned this aspect previously. According to you, what are the solutions to face the cloud security skills challenge and the mistake to avoid?
Yes, as you know today, all organizations, whatever are facing the same issue to find the best, to find the cybersecurity experts and more especially for this specific domain, cloud security, for cloud security topics. So I will try to give you some advice, some takeaways regarding the competencies. First of all, that makes sense, but invest in the development of your actual team by training, upskilling them, using trainings and certification, both technical and more agnostic. When I say technical, I mean the trainings and certification from cloud provider, Azure, AWS, GCP, etc. And agnostic trainings is more related to how, what are the best practices in the cloud security domain. And we have in the market two special certification and trainings that address this concern is CCSK and CCSP. So first of all, invest in the development of your teams, actual teams, or consider to be accompanied by cybersecurity partners. I repeat, cybersecurity partners. Why? Because they speak the same language as your SecOps team. Another point is not related to the competencies, but is more organizational. We often see that when companies launch digital transformation project, etc., as a best practice, we have we advise the companies, the organization, to build a CCOE, Cloud Center of Excellence committee that regroup all cloud architects in a committee to define the architecture pattern, etc., etc. But we often see that security teams are not involved in this team or are not permanently involved in this committee. So my third advice is to involve one or more security experts in this kind of committee, because we know that security teams is always called at the end of this project to validate the security, the security patterns of the architecture, etc., etc. Is not a good idea. A member of security teams should be a permanent member of this CCOE committee.
Thank you, Abdelmi. So, if I sum up, we may find three main key takeaways. So, first of all, invest in employee skills.
I will just add something.
Oh,
we always see something when organizations, whatever our partners or clients, when they look at for cybersecurity specialists, they try to find the five-legged sheep. In French, le mouton à 5 pattes. I can personally attest that this kind of profile is extremely rare. Will not find this kind of profile. They are very rare. So if you build a SecOps team, try to have a specialist in each cloud security cloud service provider, a specialist on Azure, specialist on AWS, specialist on GCP, and not to have one specialist on all, because to maintain the skills on 3 different cloud service providers is very hard. Thank you.
Thank you, Abdelmi. So yes, so to sum up, 3 main key takeaways from what you said. So invest in your employee skills development, including very technical knowledge specific to both cloud provider and also competencies that are agnostic of any cloud service provider. Consider support from cybersecurity partners specialized in cloud security. And last point, as Abdelmi mentioned, do not waste time to look for any five-legged sheep in this area, nor trying to make your internal employee being so. Cloud security challenge is now covered. Let's have a look at the security control level. Bertrand, could you please give us a view of the key principles to adopt in order to secure multi-cloud environment?
Yes, I have a few tips to share with you. 5, but as Tobias said, I forgot one. It's asset management. it's very important to know which cloud offer you consume, because you are not a simple customer, you are a consumer from cloud provider. Donc it's very important to have asset management. And in France, we have le guide de l'hygiène informatique from the ANSSI, the National Security Agency, which one of the 42 points, the second and the third one is asset management. It's very important. So the tips 0 is from Tobias, thank you. Do your asset management on your cloud offer, cloud provider and cloud offer. First tips, rethink the security perimeter of your on-premise environment. In a multi-cloud architecture, don't forget you have on-premise. It's not only a legacy environment. You have production on this, and it's important to rethink the security perimeter to interconnect the cloud environment. Because security have not to be contrast, data and communication between your cloud environment, including your data center, your on-premise environment, is business data and business communication. So security is not contrast. Second tip, think about the zero trust concept, maybe high-powered, but AAA become essential. AAA is for authentication, authorization, and accountability. Don't forget login and ensure the identity, the connected in the identity is a good person and not another patient. Next tip is about endpoint. Don't forget and take endpoints into account in the security models, especially during the teleworking period. We don't know who is connected to the information system. In your log, you have an endpoint, an identity, but are you sure it's the person you provide the identity to connect to your information system? Security responsibility are changing. We talked about before. So work with your DPO and your legal department to understand the different contracts and other terms of service. Because some SaaS offer doesn't have a contract you sign with the cloud provider, you only accept the term of service. And the last one, don't forget the FinOps subject for cost control. Today, cloud offers are mostly expensive than your on-premise environment. I don't say you can't go to a cloud, but try to have control on the cost. So you have to develop FinOps discipline in your IT department.
Thank you, Bertrand. So just to summarize your key points, so rethink security perimeter on your on-premise environment when interconnected with cloud environment. Consider zero trust, include endpoint in your security models, and also work with DPO and legal department when it comes to contract. We are now missing the operational aspects. How can we deal with data and application security in cloud environments? Luis, can you explain how technology can be leveraged to overcome the operational security challenge in multi-cloud environments?
I think the first thing to say is that since we're changing fundamentally where the data is stored and where it resides and where the systems are run, right, the way we think about our operational security, and particularly our security posture, actually has to fundamentally change. We can't think about our network as our perimeter. That's, in a multi-cloud environment, that's just completely outdated. And to a certain extent, when we leverage things, when we leverage philosophies or methodologies like zero trust, right? We have to start thinking less in a sort of network perimeter way of securing our assets. That's our people, our business processes, our data. We need to start thinking about them as entities that we need to defend, right? So we look at these apps, we look at these people, these identities, whether it's our customers, whether it's our own employees, whether it's partners connecting to our systems. These are the core things that we want to protect, right? It's no longer just is someone allowed in or outside of my IT system, and beyond that, it's not only is authentication and and accountability and the authorization, the 3 A's, really important, but if you think about zero trust as a philosophy across across the defense of these entities, right? You start to look at a logic where we need to start thinking about changing the paradigm, right? Instead of thinking that we have systems in our IT that are there to be opened and exploited by our people, and we need to control who comes in, who goes out. Maybe we should start thinking of having a system where the key parts, so the core functions of a system, are closed to people who do not have the authorization, and we bring that 3 A's all the way down to the data level, right? And where we consistently reassess who is allowed to do what with the data. And if we work off a closed system where, say, all the data is encrypted at the base, right? And when someone wants to access it, they have to ask for authorization for every single business process, and it has to go through a re-authentication system. They have to re-authenticate again, right? Then it's actually less work down the line. It's a more costly system up front within our defensive posture, but down the line, there's less things for us to actually look at. So this notion of zero trust is really interesting, because we start looking at our perimeter to defend in a different way, and we start because we have less controls maybe to apply because we defend up front, right? It allows security to less be a break, un frein, on the actual business. It allows, after we've gone through these authentication steps, for the business processes to move faster. And at the end of the day, if we're all moving to cloud, right, it's because there's this business transformation, there's this digital transformation, where everybody wants the entire world to move faster. And one of the challenges that we face with, messy controls, lack of people, changing technology, right? It's how do we still go fast, and how do we go as fast as part of this business transformation? So that's sort of the high-level view. It's sort of maybe a philosophical thinking that I wanted to bring out as like the first point, right? But this also means that you need to translate and look at how do you apply this philosophy to everything that you have. And the key things, and you mentioned them rightly, Alexandre, is your business. The business process. We can talk about the data, encryption as a solution. We can talk about identities. Obviously, zero trust and identity management systems and a robust identity management posture is important. But on the business process side, the applications are also very important. They work off data. You have people using them, so you're already protecting the applications with the previous two I just mentioned. But fundamentally, they are business processes and code, and we need to understand what both of these are, how these are secured as well, through functional application security testing, through code testing, and so on and so forth. And when these are subcontracted out to third parties, again, what guarantees do we have, and also what levers of control do we have as well? And some of these applications, they're not by third vendors. We build them ourselves. We host them in these new cloud platforms. Well, new for us, they've been around for a while, but we're adopting them. And the technical environments in which these business processes and apps operate have fundamentally changed, and a in-depth review of the entire application stack is it's paramount, because something sometimes old vulnerabilities come out when things move to the cloud, and these can be quite dangerous. It's important to keep those in mind. And finally, that's the last part in the security posture is your security operations, right? Beyond the application security component and the identity and data I mentioned earlier, there's a change in the way you're going to start looking and monitoring for security incidents. Because again, you're less looking at your network and your perimeter. You still have to, obviously, but there's going to be far more of an onus on what people are trying to do, what accounts are trying to do in applications, what data they are trying to access, and the correlations that you look at will maybe be less visible in sort of the network traffic and activity that you see, but more on the functional side. And fundamentally, if you're in a multi-cloud environment with multiple SaaS solutions, with multiple CSPs, right, you need to be able to collect all the data from these multiple data points and make sense of it. If you have a SOC for one CSP, say, you use one thing for Google, one thing for Amazon, and one thing for your on-premise, how is your security operations team going to be able to track and follow up? You've got to be very wary of dashboard fatigue, and if the data's not interconnected, how can you correlate it and analyze it? So making sure that your SecOps team is equipped to be able to understand everything that they need to collect, and that they are indeed looking at, the data that they're supposed to collect is really important. We have some SecOps customers, and just as a quick anecdote, I won't name it, but we have a customer who recently had a breach, and a pretty nasty one at that. And the breach came in through something that they weren't looking at. It's as simple as that. And there's nothing worse than the surprise coming from the place that when they realized, it was literally business people saying, hey, this entire business process has been locked down by a crypto locker. They didn't even see it coming. They had no mitigating circumstances. There was an entire sub-portion of the network that was just out. And they were the last people to find out. And that's just, well, not only do they look a bit rubbish and people wonder what you're paying them for, which is never really good as a CISO. For us as a tech vendor, it's like, what did we buy this software for? We look really stupid. But at the end of the day, we all need to make sure that the governance side of what you're surveying is really, really important. And again, when you have multiple places and you have a heterogeneity of the data that gets fed back, it's not as easy as it is. So you need to make sure that your SecOps guys, have access to the right data, that the tools that they do can combine the information that they need to understand and analyze, and they are trained. Increasingly, SOC people need to be data people, but they also need to be security people. And you need these, well, if not 5-legged lambs, maybe 2-legged lambs at least in your SOC.
Thank you, Luis, for this crispy anecdote that also should make us think that multi-cloud is not a tactical strategy, but rather a strategic one. In a nutshell, Luis mentioned that zero trust technology can help you to move from keeping the wrong or bad people out of your network to a situation where you only give access to data and application to the right people. Second one, use of technology and process to make sure that your apps are secure before they are deployed in different technical environments. And finally, your security operational team need to work at application level as well with SaaS vendor and also with your multiple cloud service provider to enable security incident detection. thank you for all those valuable insights you have provided. It is now time for a more open discussion before we move to the question and answer session. Panelists, do you have questions to a more open debate?
I'm interested what the audience would like.
Okay. So as we have a couple of minutes left, panelists would offer the audience to ask questions. So the audience, is there anyone who want to ask a question to our dear panelists? Hello? It works.
Okay, first of all, thank you for the presentation. It was really clear. I have a quick question, I think for Louis, regarding you mentioned the need for having all the right data and all the right, basically, logs on your SaaS platforms. How do you overcome the problems you have with your SaaS vendors to obtain the logs? It needs to be contractual. It's not always easy to negotiate with them.
Yeah, it's kind of, well, I give a solution to a problem, not really a solution to a problem that I highlight in the first part of the session, because, well, you know, what levels of controls do you have? It comes down to this, you know, yes, you are responsible for part of a business process, not the other one. What's left to your business counterpart, your provider, right? You're entitled, yes, they run the system for you, but obviously what levels of control do you have? And at some point, you know, we're a SaaS vendor also, and we do our best to provide, at the very least, functional logs of what's happening, because even though some of the technical stuff isn't necessarily very relevant, you don't necessarily need to know that they stopped goodness knows how many million bots from accessing something. But it's important to know what user account accessed what data. So I'd say at the very least the functional ones, because it's the data part it's back to those entities that I was referring to. Does it relate to critical data that you have in your organization? Yes, no. If yes, please give me a log about that. It makes sense, you know. This is not your business to secure that, it's mine. Look at the shared responsibility model that we were showing earlier. And you can apply this as well to who's logging in. You know, these are my people, these are my identities that I'm allowing to access SaaS platform ABC, right? These are my people, it's my responsibility to know what accounts. For example, is someone still accessing the platform using an account that's been deprovisioned from my Active Directory, right? This is another real world example. You know, between identity governance audits, sometimes you get orphan accounts in a SaaS platform by someone who's been supposedly deactivated, but they can still log into your CRM. And the guy's now working for competition. He's taking all of your stuff. So please give me any identity and access logs, right? And you can go through the various entities that you want to defend. I'd say these functional logs are really the key ones. The technical ones, less important. If you want them, you can ask for them, but it's a double-edged sword, right? Because you have to pay for the EPS on the back end, right? So be careful what you wish for.
Thank you very much.
Next question. More.
Julien Molvo from Decathlon. Thank you very much for the presentation. Just want to add a point and maybe have your feedbacks on that, because we finished our journey to move to the multi-cloud. And my question would be more about, at Decathlon we use a lot automation regarding security operation. And we are creating a lot of value to operate that. Do you have feedbacks to provide on that? And how are the clients or the field you see work with automation regarding security, because with the cloud we can automate a lot. So there is a lot of value we can create with for security operation.
Do you want one of our panelists in particular to answer to your point?
Maybe more for Capgemini, if I'm right. Yeah, for you.
Yeah.
Yes, as best practice, we always heard that the best manner to approach the cloud security and multi-cloud security is to automate. But from our experience, sometimes automation are some limitations, and to automate the right, first of all, if you are using tools like Terraform, etc., some Terraform functions are not present to address some services in the cloud provider. So this is the first limitation of automation. And other part is related to what I said previously, is the competency. To automate efficiently, you need to understand to understand the services that you want to automate, to configure. So as I can say that the automation is really good best practice to address the cloud security and multi-cloud security challenge, but at some limitations. So this is how we can see for different digital transformation projects.
Thank you. Maybe one last question before we close this roundtable.
Sorry, Alexandre. I have an answer for automation. I think automation is more a problem or a solution in DevOps than in cloud. Cloud is a technology used in DevOps culture, DevSecOps, and the key of DevSecOps is famous shift left. And to shift left security in the security pipeline using cloud with the hosting of the application, you need to have automation. Automation in the CI/CD to provide, to deliver application and to deliver security in application. So yes, automation is important, but I think it's more important looking at the prism of DevSecOps.
I would also like to maybe close with one very important statement. The multi-cloud challenge is not a security challenge only. It is much more. And it's completely wrong to think that the only challenge you have to tackle in cloud is security. I will give you an example on the very other end. You have a customer that found a great solution for talent management. They said, we don't want to use SAP, we found a cloud service which is called blah, 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 and we can train our employees better, we can track them. All our talent management is much nicer with that one. You accept that use case, the HR department starts to use that cloud service, they're very happy. And suddenly they find out that that cool cloud service can also be used for recruiting. There is a recruiting model in it, and we are already paying for it. That's fantastic. The HR department says, wow, we are clever. We are now using it for talent management and for recruiting, and that's great. What they don't consider is they have an employee contract with your employees. They have no contract with people who apply for a job. That means you have a massive GDPR problem. You have all things to consider, like changing of data, deleting of data, giving information, because that's an external person. The use case suddenly changed massively, and the questions you need to ask that provider are different. You don't ask anymore, do you manage my recruiting process nicely? You have to ask him, do you support me when you have a data breach, because I'm obligatory to keep my GDPR track correct? That's just a simple element, one cloud management activity, which poses a lot of tasks, a lot of new questions, and is a challenge. And I can name you minimum 50 of these cloud management tasks. I think we will have more like 100 to 200 of these tasks. And you can see it is not only about security. Yes, GDPR is also about security, but we are talking about different topics. So multi-cloud management means seeing this sourcing environment much broader and building a lot of skills, and where you don't have enough people, you get other companies to deliver that skills to you, and you do it by a good prioritization. So be careful, it's not only about security. Thank you.
Thank you, Tobias. So now we are running out of time, so I do encourage people that have additional questions to come to see the panelists just after the session. I do expect that some of your expectations were reached during this session, and that you are now more confident to go on with your multi-cloud security journey. Thank you all for your attention. Thank you.